just over the week or so, a major milestone in Middle Eastern politics and history has been made. The Assad regime in Syria has been toppled, and despite Storm Dara blowing through us on Friday evening, all the Syrian refugees in Ballyhonus and Ballahidreen, they were out in their numbers with their flags in the community halls, partying and celebrating. And it's such a great feeling to know that they are one step closer to returning to their homes. Um, this has been brought about by a certain Turkish-backed group. They're called HTS, which is uh, Hayat Tahrir al Sham, and it's led by Abu Muhammad al Jalani. They were backed by the Turks, and they managed to coordinate with a number of other anti-Assad groups, and what they did was they rose up against the Assad regime. The Syrian army, literally melted away as they took over cities like Aleppo, Damascus, and Homs. Um, then on Sunday evening, it was reported that Bashir al-Assad and his wife Asma and his family had been transported to Russia. And since then, the government fell apart. The army literally disappeared into, they literally took off their uniforms. And the people in Syria, they got into the palaces and the government buildings, and they looted as much as they can, and they discovered so many atrocities, and they've reported so many horrible things. And most significantly, the main priority for a lot of Syrians living in Syria was to open and free the prisoners in all the various prisons around Syria, most particularly the prison of Savanaya. It was called the Syrian slaughterhouse, and there we currently seen images of torture and crimes against humanity that was imposed on the Syrian people for the last 15 years of the Assad regime. So, what else can I say? The geopolitical situation. You have various parties that have been involved with Syria. Russia has been the main one. Iran also. You have Turkey. You have the Lebanon, Israel, and you have America. And on top of that, you have the rest of the Middle East watching on and paying very good attention on what's happening there. So what happened for Russia? It was seen as a failure on Putin to be able to prop up the Assad regime. It was also seen that, like since 2015, Assad had relied on Putin and his air force and his navy to oppress his own people. And as a consequence, Russia has invested an awful lot of infrastructure in the forms of air bases and ports in Syria. And all those ports now are currently being evacuated, and whatever material that's in them is either being carted away or getting destroyed. Furthermore, the issue for Russia is that it all this will have consequences with Russian activities in North Africa and particularly around the Middle East. Syria was a major transport hub for Wagner forces that are currently operating in North Africa. So now that logistics is all up in the air. Iran depended on Syria for supplying logistics to Hezbollah, which is operating in North Lebanon. For Iran, this is particularly a big setback on the grounds that Iran always depended on Syria to The Iran depended on Assad and his regime to make sure that they were able to airlift weapons and materiel into Syria and then transport that on to Hezbollah. That particular logistics hub is now up in the air now. Furthermore, Turkey has a long border with Syria, and since 2015, some 2 million plus refugees have crossed from Syria into Turkey. Turkey was under great pressure to come up with a solution to the Syrian refugee crisis and to bring about regime change. So it's going to be it'll ease pressure on Recep Erdogan for supplying refugees and looking after the refugees. Um, Also, what else can I say? The United States were operating in Syria. They were against IS, Islamic State. It hasn't gone away. They were also backing Kurdistan, Kurdish people. The Kurds don't have a country that they can have their own. They've been pushed out of Iraq. They've been attacked and they've been repressed in eastern Syria, and so the United States was instrumental in supporting them. And indeed, the Kurdish people that are in Syria now are currently in a fight with the other factions within Syria, trying to establish some sort of foothold in the eastern side of Syria. The Lebanon also took in an awful lot of Syrian refugees. Since then, the Lebanon has been providing aid to those refugees living in the Lebanon and trying to bring about, trying to accommodate those refugees. So it's in terms of Hezbollah, it's a big step back. But for the people of Lebanon that are providing aid to Syrians, this will be a lot less pressure on them. Iraq and Jordan and the rest of the Middle East. Way back in 2015, you had the Spring Offensive, where a lot of Muslim countries around the Middle East rose up against the various regimes like Libya, and they wanted to bring about better human rights. It was also about water as well. They didn't have the infrastructure to provide them some of the basic amenities. So a lot of those people in those countries now will be looking at what's going on in Syria with great interest and will be anxious to see a positive outcome for Syria. I now also neglected to mention Israel as well. Since October, they've been fighting against Hezbollah, and by Syria, by the Assad regime capitulating, it's eased a lot of pressure. Currently, the Israelis have retaken the Golan Heights as well in an effort to push back Hezbollah out of that area so that there's less attacks on their country. Also, a few takes that I have in terms of security. Syria, the Assad regime had weapons of mass destruction. They had them in the form of chemical weapons. They used chemical weapons on their own people, and they were supposed to have disposed of those weapons some time ago. Now is a good opportunity to make sure that any undisclosed weapons of mass destruction that may be currently in the Assad regime, that those weapons are then found, tracked and disposed of properly. On top of that, conventional weapons, there's a lot of munitions, tanks, helicopters, a lot of weaponry out there that's vulnerable now that the Syrian army has now dissolved. All that military infrastructure needs to be secured, and currently the Israelis and the Americans are now bombing various parts of Syria where they've tracked down and they pinpointed various ammunition dumps around the country, and currently they are carrying out bombing campaigns on them. including Russian port and air bases as well. Furthermore, Russia had an awful lot of military infrastructure inside in Syria. They too are now destroying whatever weapons and machinery that they can't take out of the country. Furthermore, there's a lot of Russian personnel currently in Syria trying to get out of Syria, and I believe the Turkish military are actually helping the Russians to be properly and safely evacuated out of the country. Another security issue in Syria is drugs. There is a significant, Syria has been, or the Assad regime covered an awful lot in terms of the manufacture and distribution of illegal narcotics in the Middle East. And there's an awful lot of that infrastructure there that needs to be locked down and kept away. Again, it's going to have a significant impact on drugs and narcotics in the Middle East. Refugees as well. Since 2015, there's at least 15 million Syrians refugees scattered mainly across Europe, Turkey, including Ireland, of course, and various other countries, Lebanon as well. They now their situation now is their status as war refugees is now changing. Turkey has opened its borders with Syria, and now there are thousands of Syrians quickly are making their way back to their country. Refugees that are in Europe now, Germany and various other countries around Europe have now stopped processing work visas for Syrian refugees on the grounds that they're no longer war refugees. And so we're going to see an easing and some sort of procedure to safely accommodate these refugees in a new way. We have a new perspective on those refugees. As for the Syrian country itself, it's been at war since 2015. Cities like Homs and Idlib and Damascus and Aleppo, they're severely damaged. They're not, I wouldn't say they're even capable of sustaining 15 million refugees coming back to the country. There's going to be a serious amount of rebuilding and renovating and systems to be brought back. Institutions need to be brought back, and civil order, the government as well. The Prime Minister of Syria has pledged to stay on and work towards bringing peace and order back to the country as well. As it happens, the head of HTS, Abu Muhammad al-Sharir, he's looking to bring about a more ordered and new society, new country of Syria. Furthermore, the people in Syria, right now, you could divide them into two factions. You have the pro-Assad, who have just discovered that they no longer have power in the country. They're not just going to disappear. They're probably going to fight for as much rights and property as they can at this point. And as for the rest, the anti-Assad, it's broken up into factions. There's an awful lot. It's very difficult to see a clear path forward that'll accommodate all those parties. So it'll be fascinating to see how it works out. Furthermore, there's still an awful lot of extremism in that country as well. Russia and Iran are not just going to turn their backs, they're going to continue meddling with that country, and it'll be very difficult to bring about peace and order and security in there. Strategically, for the Iranians and the Russians, it's a waste of time, but if anything, just to stall and to hold back and to inhibit progress, they'll do so. democracy as well. The United Nations Special Envoy to Syria has announced that there really should be what would you call it, a complete documentation of all human rights abuses in that have been carried out in Syria, to document them and to bring about trials, and to bring about the likes of Bashar Assad and his cronies, bring them all to justice, and to see that there's justice brought to the people of Syria. However, just like the Germans just after the Second World War, the immediate needs of the people of Syria is to get back to stability and order, and to bring about aid and rebuilding and reconstruction of that country. Um, what do I see in the future of Syria? It's going to take decades. It'll take decades of rebuilding and restructuring, and no matter how exciting it is right now to see all the developments as they're coming in, it's still going to take tens, years, decades, basically, to get that country back up and running. And it just shows that the whole idea of totalitarianism and dictatorships, really, they're just holding back their own people. It's all about depression, repression, and oppression of their own people, and it simply does not serve anybody's purpose except the purpose of those in power. So, as a military enthusiast, I look forward to following the developments in Syria, and to learn from them, and to take joy in the fact that progress, you just can't hold it back. That's all I have to say. Take care.